OutKick alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us. A lot of NFL draft discussion as we're now 2 days away from the NFL draft on Thursday night. A lot to get to there. We'll discuss the lack of offense in Major League Baseball, where Paul is bringing some numbers that are startling as they begin the season. That and much more coming up in the Tennessee Power Hour, where we'll talk Titans, Preds, Vols, and more. FanDuel.com/OK360. Speaking of the draft, great draft odds for you right now with Trevor Lawrence. The offer for first-time users, 20-1 odds on Trevor Lawrence being selected first in Thursday's NFL draft. You bet $5, you win $100. Open to the first player being selected on Thursday night. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville. This is free money for you. For new users, FanDuel.com/OK360. You bet $5, you win $100 if Trevor Lawrence is drafted #1 overall. Restrictions apply. It's only available in certain states, but it does include Tennessee and Indiana for two of them. FanDuel.com/OK360 for the Trevor Lawrence #1 overall bet. $5, win $100. Gentlemen, good morning.
How are we doing?
What do I always say when I see an offer like that? If you're not doing it, I don't know why you're not using the /OK360 to take advantage of free money. You must do this, and that's what you should do.
What do I always say? Give it to me, a frequent user. I want it.
This is too easy. We want the layup every day.
Yeah, a lot of us were talking. 3 out of the 4 of us in this room currently, Jakob, Chad, me, Hutton, we're due to restock. Our funds have plummeted. We need a thing like this to reinvigorate our accounts.
We need FanDuel to come up with some sort of daily layup. Like, here's your free money for
daily,
today.
Monthly. Give me a monthly layup.
Weekly. Let's keep it going. We're negotiating here, Paul. Come on. We need more of this every day. Great offers like this. Let's make it happen.
Speaking of layups, coming up a sampling of Isaiah Wilson's new EP titled Layup Lines.
Wow.
We will have that for you a little bit later this hour. David Reed has thrown up twice in the last 25 years.
We're going for number 3.
He claims the second happened as he heard
during show prep.
The EP in preparation for today's show. So we will have that for you. Former Titans first round.
I'm the only one who's
Isaiah
not
Wilson.
heard this, right? I'm the only one who's not heard a single bar of this Isaiah Wilson.
We like to save things for at least one person so we can get a real authentic reaction in the moment.
What I'm going to do is tell Jacob just to turn the camera on me when it's time. ISO camera just to my reaction when we're listening to this live.
It's going to be great.
Expect the unexpected with the NFL draft on Thursday, and we're going to give some examples of that coming up, where if you look at the head coach and general manager pairings for the top 10, all the mock drafts have a consensus of who's going 1 through 5, 1 through 6 to Miami. We're saying some things are going to be crazy on Thursday because we don't really know how to predict head coach and general manager. Thoughts on that in a moment. But first, Paul, tell us about the funny dream that you had last night that had you waking up angry.
I dreamed that I had made a takeout order. I don't know what the food was
Chinese.
Or anything. I don't know what. We just had takeout Chinese, finished the leftovers last night. But I dreamed that I ordered takeout food. And when my alarm went off, I was furious that there was no food. I intended.
You lived in both worlds, the dream world, and woke up, and that dream world came into your real world.
I was hungry, and I expected there to be food. And when there was no food, I was like, damn.
This is Chad's daily existence.
Yeah, I needed food when I woke up.
I'm always upset when there's no food.
No,
what the hell are we not eating right now? What's going on? Reed's got to have snacks somewhere, right? Come on.
Intern, food, please. We live on a strip
I'd love like a nice. It's a 11:04 where we are right now, but I'd love a nice plate of nachos in front of me or something.
That sounds
right
great.
now.
Eating on air never
sort of
goes
barbecue nacho
well.
dish sounds really good.
You're the best at eating during a break and being cleared to return from the break. I'm terrible at that, but I really did.
Very mouthy.
The alarm rang, and I was up early because I took my sister and my brother-in-law to the airport today. Great 3-week visit with my sister came to an end. Simon said last night, they're leaving tomorrow? I said, yeah. He said, when's Aunt Corrine coming, the aunt from the other side? He now wants a steady rotation of family members coming through.
Bed and breakfast.
And we don't have any relatives nearby, so...
The Koharski Inn.
Yeah. But
there is room in this.
There is room available.
This really was a seamless transition from the dream of expecting food to the awakening, expecting and being very disappointed there was no food. So, Chad, if you could deliver food tomorrow morning. I wake up usually at 7, not at 6:30.
It's interesting how you. I feel like you have a difficult time going from your sleep phase to waking up, to where it all kind of crosses over. And it's not
Doesn't everybody?
It's not like you're awake and then you're immediately like, oh, this is real life and not the dream. But I have had dreams before where I'm eating or there's food in front of me. I just wake up hungry. I don't wake up mad that there wasn't food delivered to my home, but I do wake up wanting that food that I had a dream about.
Teresa and I have both had legitimate dreams. I don't know if you guys have had this, where we're pissed off at, she's been pissed off at me or I've been pissed off at her for something that happens in the dream. And it's really hard to get rid of it. I'm like, I am unreasonably angry with you and I understand it was a dream, but I'm having trouble getting past
that. That happens. And the other thing that happens is it's sometimes, like I will wake up and not know, like, did I dream this was a sports report or did this actually happen? Like, did so-and-so
get traded?
Yeah, get traded. Did they get injured in practice yesterday? Like, or am I just making this up based on a dream that I had that I don't really remember?
I think a new segment of the show should be Hutton Dreams, and you just come in with a fake report that you may or may not be real. You just come in and you say, the craziest thing that I saw yesterday was this, and then we have to tell you whether or not we break the news. You don't go back and look at it the next morning. We tell you real or fake.
He's going to
whether you had a dream about it or not.
This is very real, but it's going to describe Chad Withrow's own personal hell.
Gosh!
And I think
we're not talking about kids again, are we?
No, I think Paul. I don't know if Paul would go for this or not. I have a feeling he would. Claire and I are going to a weekend wedding this weekend. We're going Friday and Saturday, and we are staying at a hotel that is dog-friendly. Half of the wedding party insists on bringing their dogs, which we are all for. We are bringing Brody, our golden retriever, which is you can have a hotel room and bring your dog, and no questions asked.
Sounds like a place I won't be staying.
Chad's out.
Because I got a lot of questions.
Chad, can you bring your gun?
I've got a lot of questions. I don't like no questions asked places. I got a lot of questions.
Chad and I were just in Chattanooga a month and a half ago, and we had lunch right across the street from where we'll be staying.
Pump Up Rock City.
Yeah, so
didn't see a single dog. Believe it or not.
A brand new hotel, and can't wait to stay there. My point is, Paul, what do you think Chad would do in a setting like this, like checking into a hotel and then realizing, oh, this is a pet-friendly hotel?
Now, this is difficult because this would depend on the refund policy.
Yes.
Right. If you could get out of the money, you would change hotels immediately. But if there was some kind of thing where you had to, you could only get a partial refund. This is like me at the Naked Gay Resort in Key West.
My first thought was that I would have had the same reaction you had at the nude gay resort, is that I would have showed up and said, well, this isn't happening, so I'll be taking my money back.
We actually stayed. We just got a room with 2 beds. We didn't have a lot of alternatives.
Does this room come with or without the Cocker Spaniel? I'm just asking. Is this the golden retriever suite?
Look, I would have a problem with it myself. I like dogs. I don't like barking dogs. And I don't like other people's barking dogs.
I'm comfortable staying with our dog.
You're right. Not your dog so much, especially if he's barking at my dog.
And quite frankly, the wedding couple, they have dogs that are very mild-mannered and
will they be in the wedding?
Large. I don't know.
Are they the ring bearers?
No idea. I'm along to observe just like everyone else, but we're going to have a great weekend. But I do think like 70% of this hotel is going to be straight canine.
Yeah, I'd like to personally think this. We're mutual friends with them. I'd like to thank them for not inviting me.
And for taking the dogs out of Nashville.
This does not sound like a fun afternoon for me. Plus, I'll probably be coaching T-ball on Saturday. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not going to.
Any dogs at the T-ball game, or is it a dog-free park?
Not a lot of dogs. I mean, yeah, there's. I don't really look for the dogs. I'm more into the game. I'm really focused on this T-ball game.
Before the game starts,
I'm not noticing a lot of dogs.
You're allowed to look around.
Yeah, most people leave their dogs at home outside. Where I live, that's where dogs belong.
Whatever became of your neighbor with the
indoors.
Big vicious dog? You chased him out of town.
That dog died.
at your
under
hands.
mysterious reasons. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how the dog died, but it's not with us anymore.
Sad.
Chad, not a big dog fan.
Thank God.
For those new to the show and for those old to the show,
He's got a lot of fear.
his
Fear deep
feelings
inside.
remain the same.
I have a hard enough time worrying about humans and making sure that they're okay, so I don't need to add a dog into the mix. But I do believe that at some point that's probably going to be added to the mix also. So,
Oh, really?
yes,
The girls will win out.
they will win. They will probably win.
I
And the
can't
dog will
wait for
remain
a picture
outside?
of you.
Oh, yeah, that dog is never stepping foot inside.
I
The
think
step
it's
foot
going
in
to
the
be a
garage.
small, cute dog that
Nope.
comes in the house, is on your lap.
Perfectly
Daddy,
medium-sized
can we
dog.
take Fluffy for a walk?
Perfectly medium-sized Labrador of some sort that will be outside.
The Chad walking
The
the
whole time.
dog around the neighborhood. And
I'm
Big
gonna-
Bad Chad can't play right now. He's
I-
walking the
I've
dog.
seen Chad interact with Brody. He's been fine with the mild-mannered dog. Like I think it's the hyper dog that he's more
See,
like get off
Finley,
me.
Finley here, who you see here, has 5 minutes of hyper, and then he calms down. And now he's gotten a lot older. It's much more mild.
Let me be clear on my dog stance. I grew up
ahead.
with dogs, right? I love dogs.
You grew
growing
up shooting
my
dogs, is
My
my
dogs.
understanding.
My dogs were outside.
They had a coyote problem.
I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood. I didn't really grow up in a neighborhood, but on properties where I had a dog who bit the tail off of another dog in the neighborhood in a fight, and that dog was later poisoned with antifreeze
Whoa.
and killed. My dog.
Vengeance.
Devastated when I was a little kid that my dog came home sick and died because of antifreeze poisoning. I have no
the
issue with
charges
dogs.
pressed?
Here's my issue. When people treat dogs like humans.
I don't like that either.
This is my issue. Humans better than dogs.
I agree.
The value of a
Most humans.
human life is over that of a dog. In the Bible, God gave dominion over beast. A dog, whether you want to
Bible
make it a
study
human
with
or not,
Chad.
is not a human.
Our fastest growing segment,
This is,
Bible study with
This is a
Chad.
problem right now in our world where we can just say things or this when it's not. Like, the sky is green when it's in fact blue, but that's my truth. And I believe that it's green and it's in fact blue. No, it's blue. You're an idiot. You're not telling facts. Dogs, not humans. Humans are humans. We treat humans like humans. I'm not saying treat dogs poorly. Treat them like a dog. They're a pet. They're man's best friend, but they're not man. Do you see the difference between those two?
I agree with you on this, but I
This is
still like my
stance.
dog.
It's not
I don't
it's
dress
not a
him.
controversial stance.
I don't dress him. I don't
fact,
feed him people food.
Yeah, Clay Travis is going to get a letter from PETA now for what I just said because I dared to claim that a dog is lower than man. It is beast.
There's a song from Dad's Acid called Dominion Over Beast, in fact.
Yeah.
That's a band
very
that I would
catchy
pay
tune.
good money to go see live. I think they opened for Marilyn Manson the night that I was there, in fact. Dominion over beast.
Jacob, what shirt are you wearing today? There's a skull. I can see,
Let's see it.
a spine, I think.
Oh, I know what this is.
That's Psycho Las Vegas.
Psycho Fest, right?
Psycho Fest, yeah, that's
What
Jacob,
went on at Psycho Fest?
Jacob has talked about Psycho Fest
Can we
before
speak of what
as
goes on there, or
A
is it
festival of sorts.
Like a blood oath not to speak of it.
yeah, it's just like the band Sleep we were talking about with the 63-minute song. That sort of group plays there.
Yeah.
And Dominion over Beast had a hell of a set one year at Psycho Fest.
So you're never like, hey, I'm waiting until this song's over for a bathroom break. You just go.
I think, yeah, I don't think there are bathrooms at Psycho Fest. I think it's just
Oh, a toilet.
sort of like we're dogs. We're getting back to dogs now, right? The world is the dog's toilet. That's the way it is at Psycho Fest.
No, not if you house train your dog.
We are judging the draft based on the consensus of analysts right now. But it's actually really difficult to predict the draft, especially the top 10 overall, because of the uncertainty of these head coach and general manager pairings. We'll discuss the top 10 of Thursday night's draft and give our thoughts on what to expect or really what not to expect. That's straight ahead on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really excited to finally have some in-person OutKick VIP events. We're at 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky Yeehaw Brewery. awesome day, great questions, good to shake everybody's hand. It's just good to be able to get out and see everybody.
We love to meet with the people that make us possible as a show, the people that tune in, the people that watch, the people that listen.
A lot of these VIPs interact with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and now we get a chance to come out and hang out, watch games, and interact with them the same way we would interact with the three of us on a daily basis. It's awesome.
If you're at a VIP event, you're going to hear more about the inside jokes, stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can ask us anything. We want to be with listeners and viewers as much as possible, so we're thrilled.
Looking forward to doing a lot more of these VIP events as we continue to grow.
It's an incredible experience. I would advise everyone out there, if you're a fan of OutKick or OutKick 360, to sign up and be a VIP.
OutKick 360 across the OutKick network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, David Reed, and Jacob Swanson making the show happen for us as we broadcast live from Studio G in Nashville, Tennessee at the Blackbird Studios and the Blackbird Academy, world class here in Nashville. If you want to go to school for studio engineering, audio engineering, if you want to be on the road with a musical act, if you want to tour with Jacob's band, or maybe you want to work for a music venue or for a studio, a recording studio. You can go to school for that right here in Nashville with the McBrides. TheBlackbirdAcademy.com is the website, theblackbirdacademy.com. Beautiful facility, and we are very fortunate and lucky to be able to have Studio G for OutKick 360. So there is the consensus of analysts every year. And look, these guys get paid to dissect the draft, scout the draft, talk to sources, mention different things going on, and when we discuss it too, what we think teams will do. But Paul brought this up late last night, and he's exactly right. It is especially tough in 2021 to predict what is going to happen in this NFL draft because of the new head coaches and the new general manager pairings at the top. We haven't seen certain ways that they will build their roster. We have not discussed or seen examples of how they trade in an NFL draft. Many of these guys, Paul, we're going to be taking notes for the first time this NFL draft this April.
Yeah. Remember the Raiders' first draft class with Mike Mayock working with John Gruden? And
2 years ago, right?
Yeah. And they were drafting second overall. They took Cleveland Farrell.
Third, I think. Third or fourth. Fourth.
Right. This was a huge surprise to everyone. Because he was rated more like 12th or 18th, and he went third.
It's a great example.
And so everybody was like, well, this is crazy that he went third. Well, there were a couple answers to this. One was, and Peter King brought it up, if Mike Mayock had still been in the media, Cleveland Farrell would have been more highly regarded because Mike Mayock was one of the most heavily influential draft analysts there was. His voice would have rated Cleveland Farrell higher, and so his average ranking would have moved up, and he would have been higher overall. He would have averaged out higher. But also, this is my thing, and this is why I have a problem with the draft, generally speaking, and there's a huge buildup to the draft. And Mike Silver, a friend of mine who writes and broadcasts for NFL Network, wrote a great column about this. It had to be, maybe it's 10 years old already. He said, we set this up, the media sets kind of the order of how we expect people to come off the board and how we rate people. Then the draft happens, and then we grade the draft against the order that we set. So what kind of exercise is this? We don't know the talent of the people. Then we admit that you can't really grade the draft for 3 years. Now we've accelerated it to 2 years, right? But so we set it up, we judge people against what we set up while we're saying you can't really judge it for 2 years. I mean, if you think that whole thing through, there's not a lot of sense to it. Yet, it's the most popular thing in the world.
It's because there's drama to it.
Right. Unpredictability and drama.
It may not make a bunch of sense on how it's covered because, again, it's very cyclical. I've told you exactly how this draft will be covered before it even happens.
Yet we eat it up.
And we mentioned yesterday, the report from Rappaport was that Mac Jones or Trey Lynch were the two quarterbacks to San Francisco. Headline at ESPN today is they like all five. Headline today. San Francisco likes all five quarterbacks. That's why they traded.
He could have said anything.
Generic headline available.
He could have said anything yesterday, Shanahan, at their pre-draft press conference, and it's a headline. Anything.
But here's the real, and you're exactly right, Paul. As we go through here, and we're not trying to say that we think that the Jags or the Jets won't take a quarterback here. Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke in Jacksonville will take Trevor Lawrence. There's a reason FanDuel.com is giving new users 20-1 odds on if Lawrence is the number one overall pick. You bet 5, you win 100. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas in New York with the Jets, they should go Zach Wilson. San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. We don't really know which quarterback they're going with. Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. But they trade up. They trade from 12 to 3, and they give up a ton of future picks in this year and two further first-round picks. They're going quarterback.
Taking one of those three guys.
But here's where the water is muddied. Atlanta with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. We expect them to go Kyle Pitts. That seems pretty obvious, but we don't really know how much they value adding a young tight end versus a future quarterback.
But they could even go Sewell.
They could go Sewell.
And they could trade back.
Could they trade back? Yes.
And they have no record for us to look at.
Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin in Cincinnati, where it's really Mike Brown making the call in Cincinnati, but Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin, Sewell or Chase in that.
And Mike
aspect.
Brown has a long history of loving receivers. They draft a lot of receivers in Cincinnati. Well, they have pretty good receivers in Cincinnati already, but they could use one.
Miami with Brian Flores and General Manager Chris Greer, it would make sense if Sewell is there that they're going to go offensive line, but they could also go Jamar Chase. Kyle Pitts, is he still available? What happens at Atlanta? Again, it's hard to mock that.
And it's even conceivable they go Devontae Adams because of their quarterback if they're steering there to get Tua with his guy.
So here's where it gets really
Murky.
crazy. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes in Detroit. What do the Lions really do? I think many have Waddle to Detroit, but that is just best player available for a lot of
And
draft
they lost
boards.
their best receiver in free
A
agency.
lot of people have receiver as the need for Detroit. So
But they're biting off kneecaps, Dan Campbell
They're a
said.
terrible
And
team.
receivers don't bite off kneecaps, and you start from the inside out generally when you're a terrible team.
Yes, exactly. Matt Rule and Scott Fitterer in Carolina. Patrick Surtain is mentioned there. Rashawn Slater at offensive tackle. They used every draft pick last year on defense. And many have Surtain slotted to them at 8th overall.
there's reports yesterday that they're interested in quarterback,
They could
even though
take
they
the
have
next
Darnold.
quarterback.
That if Justin Fields were to fall to that spot, that Carolina would draft Justin Fields.
Their owner, Tepper, is hell-bent on a star quarterback. If they love
Right.
one of those quarterbacks, it won't be a surprise at all if they take the 5th quarterback, or maybe it's the 4th quarterback, or maybe it's the 3rd quarterback if the Falcons pass on cornerback. No, the 4th quarterback.
Vic Fangio was on the verge of getting fired last year. He's feeling the most pressure among these coaches right now.
New GM.
George Payton, who's the new general manager, taking over for John Elway, who's still with the organization, but George Payton is making the call. Are they going quarterback? If Carolina passes on the quarterback, do they take Micah Parsons at linebacker? Don't know in Denver. And then Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is always one of those wild cards, and he holds the 10th overall pick this year.
There's a consensus, almost a consensus there on Surtain, but he could go ahead of there. You mentioned him already once. They love Kyle Pitts, though Peter King consistently writes about how they've resisted temptation to go up and get some people that Jerry Jones doesn't love. Also, so you got a bunch of GMs with no track records, which is helpful to those GMs. Like nobody has a book on what I'm going to do here, which helps make me a blank slate. Might make you more willing to come and trade with me because you have no idea what I'm going to do. So that's an advantage. But beyond this first round board idea, Chad, this idea that there's any kind of consensus, I mean, there are always surprises, right? This year, everybody knows less about guys than ever before. And so I'm convinced we're going to see a couple guys go in the first that we believe, based on analyst consensus, are second rounders. And we're going to see a couple guys who, based on analyst consensus, we think are first rounders, slip. And that's not these teams being wrong. That's us being wrong about what these teams think. And team number 1 and team number 32, just whoever they are, not in the draft order, are going to conceivably have very different thinking on who's a first rounder and who's not, on who player 60 is going to be very different from one team to the next based on what they've seen on tape and in these Zoom meetings and at the pro days, because they have very little evidence and different sets of eyes judge different things based on what you need.
Well, and so I've got big questions about what Washington does, what Chicago does. There's going to be some team, Denver we mentioned, that's going to trade up to get a quarterback. And it's going to reset a lot of different things.
What's New England do?
And they're going to give up a lot. New England, Washington, Chicago. Denver would be the easiest one to do so because they're 9th. So they wouldn't have to give up as much to move up, not as far as, let's say, I think Washington at 19, for instance, would have to move up to do. Those are big questions I have. I think this really tests every year for the consumer what is news when you're talking about pre-draft analysis. Is a Mel Kiper new mock draft news? Is it newsworthy when someone says, if Peter King puts out a mock draft and says, I'm hearing on this spot, and they put someone in that spot, is that news?
We've made it.
Or is that speculation?
They've made it news, and we've eaten it up to the
the hype
degree that it
cycle.
confirms that it is.
But this is where you can't bury your sources. But it really does help if you put, I'm hearing from someone around the GM, or I'm hearing from someone here about this. Because I could easily say I'm hearing something, but no one knows where that's coming from. But you also can't bury where you're getting your
But
stories.
Chad, here's the deeper
so
thing.
I just think it's always going back to the level of surprise. Someone drafts someone and it's a surprise. Usually it's Seattle. They draft someone at the end of the first round. Everybody's, oh my God, I didn't see this guy. I thought it was a third-round pick or late second round. I didn't think that someone was going to. That's not news. This isn't news to Seattle. They value this person as a first-round pick the whole time. It's news because it's not what you expected. What you didn't expect is not news when it happens. It's just what the other team was doing all along, and it surprised you.
Well, it's news once we find out about it because it's a surprise.
But is it?
This is the truth.
That's what the
about
draft
the
is,
news.
surprising.
No, this is the truth about the draft news. The media is in on the gag here.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is they are eating from the palm of the NFL hand because of the ratings boom that ABC and ESPN are about to have on Thursday night, that NFL Network will have on Thursday and all weekend as they break down the draft, that all of these national websites will have, that we will have on Thursday and Friday with our live stream. We all play into this, and then the media, the national reporters whose job it is to report news, will say, yes, Dad, whenever the NFL says, don't you dare report a pick if you know about it ahead of time before it's announced live on television. They're playing into the news, and they eat from the palm of the NFL hand because they're told to.
And Peter,
that's the truth behind it.
And Albert Breer wrote yesterday, Monday, why does Kyle Shanahan mess around at that press conference yesterday and play around like any quarterback will do and jerk the media around? He says in part he believes it's because the NFL mandates to teams, don't mess with our TV show.
Don't mess with the drama and the hype. It's great television, but they've built up this TV show, and you have all of the hype pushing into it, where because of the uncertainty at the top, we really don't know what's going to happen after the first three picks.
Yeah,
you know what
even
I
at
find,
three.
This is what I find interesting.
Or
the
at
whole
three,
thing.
yeah.
Hutton, you hit on this. Everybody's in on the gag, right?
Everyone.
It's never been more true than now because literally the networks are in on the gag. Everyone is. They're all together. There's no big difference. There's different analysts. They're not hiding cameras from each other. 3-4 years ago, if NFL Network had a setup at a facility, ESPN can't use that. That's our camera.
Right.
There was actual competition. There's no competition. The NFL has mandated we want as many eyeballs as possible on this. We don't care where they go.
Right.
You may care ESPN. You may care ABC, even though it's the same company. You may care NFL Network. Doesn't matter. We're looking at a combined number of people that watch the draft, and you guys are gonna. It's like the scene in Days of Thunder where they get the two racers together, the driver, and say, "We're gonna get together. We're gonna do this together now. We're gonna have a dinner, and you're all gonna come together." And I feel like all the reports sort of come together in the same way. Here's something else I'd like to see. Stop with the press conferences.
We
don't need to hear from Kyle Shanahan to do a BS press conference. They're not saying anything. We don't need to hear from John Robinson.
Based on what Kyle Shanahan said.
It's stupid. It's a charade
the dumbest
that we're all playing into.
The most obvious and dumbest thing he said was the national headline from his press conference yesterday, where he said, I don't know if anyone's going to be alive on Thursday, so I can't guarantee you that Garoppolo's going to be on our roster. Why are we covering this if we don't know if you're going to be alive on Thursday? That would be my reaction to that. Why do you get away with saying that? BS.
I'll counter you, Chad, and obviously I come at it from a different angle. But I'll take Robinson yesterday because there were a couple things. I got more information on that medical thing, which for me was a post at paulkuharsky.com about the idea that the Titans may not have seen somebody like Farley in person. And that, to me, is an interesting nugget heading into the draft. Not every team may have seen the injured guy and get their own evaluation. So there's a good nugget there. He gave a good nugget on Anthony Ferkser, their tight end, and how he's deployed blocking-wise that tells you a little bit about what they may be looking for if they draft a tight end. So there are a couple small things there that on the local level are important. Are the big draft questions producing any answers? No. No. But anytime you can check in with the GM and get little things that help fill in puzzle pieces, a beat guy's going to take it, and a good beat guy's going to get some
80,
things he can add.
Let
Let
me jump in though on that, because John Robinson's a bad example, simply because I thought he actually sounded like he was willing to talk and wanted to be there in that. Mike Vrabel's a better example, who never wants to talk to the media and thinks it's all a big joke. And there's a lot of people like that. The Kyle Shanahan press conference. Kyle Shanahan, the last thing he wants to do is be there talking to the media, and you could just read the answers and see that was the truth. So I want to get past this forced speaking era that we're in, where people in the NFL, it's like we have to do a press conference at some point, so let's do it and let's talk. Hud, you played us a clip yesterday of Dana White in a press conference. And I get that it's different. This guy runs a sports organization, the whole league.
He approaches everything the opposite way.
Totally opposite, but also
which is terrific.
I want to hear from people when they have something they want to say, when they want to speak. I want coaches to get out there after a game and say, I'm ready for this because I want to address everyone with a few things that I've heard or seen. We're talking about this player. We're talking about this thing that's going on. I really wish we could get to an era where people, coaches, by people I mean coaches, GMs, players, wanted to say something.
I agree with that.
The desire to say something. Dana White is calling out newspapers. He's calling out other fighters. He's calling out everything else because the guy has something to say and he wants to say it. I want people involved in sports that actually want to say something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't like this careful, super careful, everything, but at least
but it's not even that, Paul. I don't want to be doing this, you can tell.
Yeah. But you got to have them present to be held to account for things on occasion. Certainly.
But who's holding these people to account?
Well, there are people like me out there in every market.
But again, and yes, you ask some tough questions, but when has anyone been held to account by you? You ask questions to someone that they don't like, and fans crush you for it.
Well,
I mean, no one's being held to account.
Well, at least he's on the record having been asked the question and squirmed, or we know what his reaction is to being asked a question. And there's something to that.
But the counter to that is whenever they give us a BS answer about, Isaiah Wilson was just so jolly, we can make fun of them for it now a year later.
Yeah, like I want to live in a.
I mean, that's the accountability.
I want to live in a world. We're going to play this Isaiah Wilson rap ditty at some point, right? I want to live in a world where I can put on a speaker, "Hey, John Robinson, let's get your reaction to this. What do you think?" and play it for him. And get a response. And
let's go outside his window like John Cusack.
I'd love for John Robinson to say, I really want to talk about this for a little bit. There's some things I want to say. There's some things I've heard that I don't like about this and some things that I'll agree with on it. And here's where we made a mistake, but here's also where we did our due diligence and it backfired. I want you to come to bat with something to say, and if not, don't say anything.
Well,
I don't want to have to sit through this
It's not even that. It's the minutia of you can copy and paste 85% of any press conference in the league right now and save it for next year and tweet it out as if he's saying it live in April of 2022, and he will be saying that. He being a general manager or a head coach of any team in the league. Every general manager is going to discuss how they're taking phone calls. They're calling around to see what it would take to move up or down in this draft. That's their job, and they should do that every single year. Every general manager, if you ask them, hey, do you like having 4 picks in the top 100? The obvious answer to that question is, I'd like more. I'd sure like to have more than 4.
Are there answers for you out there at your positions of need?
Like to have more picks?
Absolutely. We see guys out there who can come in and help us right away and going to make this football team better.
But there is a degree of the media is okay playing along with this charade because of the numbers and the clicks and the ratings and the eyeballs that are going to tune into this event. This is a regular season event that takes place in the end of April every year.
Yeah, people.
Some people like it better than games. Some people like the draft better than games.
The numbers show that also, but
which I don't understand.
But I think that you just know, we could literally look into a camera and speak into a microphone and say NFL draft, and someone's going to watch it. I mean, you could just say NFL draft, NFL draft, NFL draft, NFL draft, NFL draft over and over, and people are going to watch it. But taking it to the next level, I think, is what's difficult for
Algorithm
people.
shooting up right now.
And Paul, we talk about TV reporters a lot, right? And I'm just using this as a broad example. It's not just TV reporters.
It's
a
my
lot of
rant.
reporters.
It's my rant.
It's the copy and paste questions.
Yeah.
In
They
every
just
draft
need
press
sound.
conference.
It doesn't matter what the sound
But
is. They
it's
need
not
sound.
even. But you also just need copy. Like you just need words.
Yeah.
You could go and put a tweet. This NFL GM says this about gut instinct versus evaluation, or whatever it may be, and that's going to be read, or it's going to be listened to, or it's going to be viewed, and you know that going in. So it's very easy to do it. And I'm not going to sit here and fight back with people that's doing something that's smart because you know people are going to click on it. I think the challenge is going to the next level. And Paul, I think you do a good job with your questions a lot of times of trying to find something different and trying to write something different. But I'll pose this question to you. You listen to Dana White in a press conference. Does part of you not think it would be really interesting to cover the UFC, even if I don't like the UFC?
Yes.
Because I'm covering someone like this in a press conference, and when you can ask a follow-up question to someone telling the Las Vegas Review-Journal to bleep off, that's a heck of a lot better follow-up question than a lot of the garbage you're given in an NFL press conference.
Oh,
right?
I would
At least
love
you're
to be
allowed
in
to ask a
position.
follow-up.
I would love to be in position to have
Yes.
that sort of dialogue with somebody. But I also think that when UFC hits a certain level of mainstream,
See, I don't think so, because I think that's part of their bit.
right?
They're always going to be that way.
I agree too, but sports
It's an
in
interesting
general,
topic.
when you hit a certain level,
You shut
then
down.
your appeal becomes different, and you want to appeal to a broader audience, and the broader audience maybe doesn't like that conflict, right? So there's a certain audience that UFC has absolute hold of that loves that. But if you grow beyond that audience, then do you have to ease up on that? We know those are the calculations that big businessmen like Dana White are making, and that Roger Goodell's predecessors made a long time ago.
Help me with this. How did we get to a point where the tipping of picks, which is news and valuable
Jay Glazer do it?
Valuable information. Jay Glazer, we're talking about the best reporters in the National Football League who have agreed not to report news.
Oh, it's not
Adam
them.
Schefter,
It's their
Peter
bosses.
King, as if they don't know in advance
Yeah.
who teams are taking on draft night. They have agreed
I think
not
they hate
to tip
it.
picks.
I think the reporters hate it. Their bosses are dictating it, and that's the TV
think-
I
contract
know.
thing. Jay Glazer,
They're
though,
being
has
told
gone
not
against
to.
it sometimes as a Fox guy and been a rebel. I don't know what will happen this year. I don't remember what happened last year. I prefer it.
I don't recall him doing
Like,
it
go
last
report.
year.
I
He's
think
done
there's
it in
a
the past.
big-
In the past, he's gone against it at least one year.
No one's gone against it recently. No one's been doing it because they'll get reprimanded. I do think that there is a big, and I don't fault the NFL for this in a lot of ways.
It makes for the TV show.
I do think fans
It
generally
makes it, but it's
prefer.
also that they're too big to fail. And if you're as fat and happy as the NFL right now, there has to be a mentality of just don't screw this up, right? Let's just not screw this up. Let's not take a stance that's going to alienate people. Let's give the fans exactly what they want. Let's appease the journalist out there by holding a BS press conference so at least they can say that they had something and they got to ask questions. And then everyone that's involved in the league, and I'm going with GMs and head coaches also, they're not really going to show their true personality, because I do think when you get to that point, Paul, and you can speak to this probably better than I can, it's you don't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess up this gig. I don't want to say anything that's controversial. I don't want to get myself in trouble. And I think that's the mentality of the NFL sometimes. And I don't think it leads to a more entertaining product. I think it leads to a more watered down product that maybe appeases the masses, and they know that we're hooked. They know we're watching. Football is king in America. And when you can marry NFL and college football, we're watching. So it really doesn't matter what they do. It's just, let's just not shoot ourselves in the foot with this. And that's typically the mentality.
Let's go beyond the draft, all right? When the Titans had their big COVID shutdown, and they were the first of a few teams, but they were the first. And so it was a monumental story. Now, I don't like to be driven by what other people are doing. And so I'm not a reporter who has alerts set up on his phone for every mention of the Titans. But at that point, I set alerts for Schefter and Pelissaro from NFL Network because Rappaport was suspended. He was suspended for some endorsement thing. It's amazing how Pelissaro was doing just as well as Rappaport during that stage, by the way. And I'm not sure that Pelissaro hasn't passed Rappaport, by the way.
By the way, I'm pretty sure it was a Manscaped ad that got him in trouble.
Oh, that's
I think
right,
so too.
yeah.
I think so too. Friends
by
of
the
ours.
way,
There's a box right over there.
Terrific product. Just since there we go.
Okay, so I still have those alerts.
Rappaport's very jealous of you right now.
Manscaped, terrific.
I still
Hey,
have
hold
those.
on, Rappaport. Eat your heart out.
Yeah, turn the light on.
Eat your heart out. Oh, it's on.
on.
It's always on.
So I still have those alerts set, and it's not that I don't necessarily pay that close attention to the alerts, but when I'm on Twitter, there'll be a thing on Twitter that says, Adam Schefter and Tom Pelissaro tweeted,
Yep.
and call your attention to their tweets. It is boom, boom every time. Schefter's better, Schefter's faster, and Schefter more often has unique stuff. But you want to talk about the machine. You want to talk about the machine of the league, not just from the league side and the team side, but the agent side. 90% of the stuff that's coming out goes to ESPN and NFL Network. Boom, boom. Which one's the fastest typer? Clearly goes to ESPN more often first. But if somebody has something, the other one gets it very fast, or they're getting it in quick succession. It's clear. It goes to one first and the other immediately following, and it's boom, boom. That's a machine. Now, these guys are great newsbreakers. I'm not saying they aren't. But also, oftentimes, here and here. You have it, you have it. And that's hand-downs from the league, from the teams, and from the agents. The agents don't have the contracts with them, but they know who has the contracts. And that's a machine-like operation. That's a lot separate than actual news breaking, which they're doing also. I'm not demeaning them as newsbreakers. But if you look at go look at 3 days worth of their tweets about stuff, it's clear how it works. If it's not, I can tell you all about it.
By the way, shame on Ian Rappaport for doing any unlicensed advertising for something. We'd never do something like that on here, like talk about this ball deodorant with Manscaped or this ball toner with Manscaped. We would never do something like that if it wasn't licensed with the company. So I just think, for shame, to get
You're suspended for a
something
week.
like that.
Paul, I can only imagine with our
Not good.
temperament, if we were told you can't tip the picks if you know them, you can't break news if you know the news in advance.
I would not handle it well at all.
I mean, the blood
And I would
pressure,
probably
the
risk-
arguments behind the scenes would be at an all-time high.
But the problem I go back to, too big to fail. The response is, do you like your job covering the NFL? Because we can see to it that you don't have that anymore. And we can see to it that no one talks to you. And we can silence you pretty quickly. That's what happens when you become a Goliath like the National Football League.
And there are personal relationships that exist that the league or a team or a company can't get in the way of. But they
I
can get in the
don't
way of you
understand
using what you get out of those personal relationships.
The outlets are paying the NFL. It's not the other way around.
This is something that we were curious about
It's
at
a
our
$1 billion contract.
at our old station with Titans Radio.
Yes.
It's an inside out.
And-
kind of
but
thing. The
it
station
boggles
pays
my
the
mind.
team,
The
but the
NFL's
team has the
telling you,
control.
And meanwhile, it's $1 billion over 10 years for you to have the relationship that you do with
Yeah,
us.
so ESPN pays the league, but it's the league that has the power. It's an odd dynamic. If I'm paying you for your product, then you should be beholden to me, the payee, the payer.
Well,
but the payee has the power.
There's only so many companies, media companies, and we can talk about this on the other side too, going back to that dynamic of we pay you, you don't pay us. We can tell you what to do. We make the
We
rules.
can put
there's still only so many,
playmakers
there's a lot
on
of
the
money
air.
out there, but there's only so many media companies that can afford the NFL. So is NBC Universal going under because they only have one NFL game a week and it's on Sunday night versus Fox, CBS, ABC, ESPN and what they have? ABC, ESPN also. Are they struggling because they only have... You see my point? Like, these companies still exist and there's not a lot of other ones out there outside of Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Right. But the
that's
thing
going to
is,
get in the mix with this. So how are you going to lose it?
You were invested in the product, so they say, hey, you've got a huge investment in us, so you've got to help us make us look good. And when you put playmakers on the air, that casts us in a bad light, and that weakens the very product that you paid these hundreds of millions of dollars for. So help us out. You've got to shine us up.
Playmakers.
You've got to stay away from steroids, and you've got to stay away from betting once upon a time. Now go crazy with betting. But 10 years ago, don't even whisper about it.
Speaking of betting, 20-1 odds on the number 1 overall pick, FanDuel.com/OK360. You can bet Trevor Lawrence to be the number 1 overall pick to Jacksonville. I think he's minus 1 million if you were to bet this.
Giant.
He's going to be the number 1 overall pick to Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bet $5 as new users at FanDuel have done. FanDuel.com/OK360. You bet up to $5. You can win $100 if Trevor Lawrence is drafted number 1 overall. Coming up, the Titans had a first-round pick last year, and now he's in a music studio. Probably, well, we know it wasn't Blackbird, and it's not nearly as good as Blackbird because it produced the music we're going to hear, and Chad will hear for the first time next.
So musical.
Chad, on display behind you, the birth of Catfish Jake and the instrument of crime. Jacob Waddell, huge fan of the show and a great friend of ours, threw a catfish on the ice in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, the Nashville Predators at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he was charged with disrupting the peace and charged with using and possessing an instrument of crime, which just happened to be a catfish that he threw on the ice. And here is the court summons from the Honorable Jeffrey A. Manning. We display it proudly.
The Honorable Jeffrey A. Manning, the Honorable Jacob Waddell, the reason that we went to Augusta National for the first time, the reason that we had a sticker of our previous show on the catfish that hit the ice. Now the one thing we need to do, Hutton, is just get this man an OutKick 360 sticker so he can place it on a fish of some sort and throw it on the ice of a big NHL event.
Our next big goal is to have one of the catfish that's on display at Bridgestone Arena named after Jake. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, David Reed, and Jacob Swanson making the show happen for us. Coming up in the Tennessee Power Hour, after our rant about the NFL draft and how we all play into it, we can say it is franchise changing for teams, regardless of if they draft a player where the media thinks they should have or not. We will ask you to chime in on Twitter at OutKick360. We'll give our thoughts as well as we take a look at a group of players that have been discussed for the Titans at 22, and we actually discuss whether or not we think they'll be there or not based on what others are saying about the mock drafts and the NFL draft and how good we think these players actually are. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll also talk Preds. We'll discuss the dilemma of Caleb Farley, who is one of the players we'll mention in this exercise. And Joe Milton is officially a quarterback at the University of Tennessee. No longer an offensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans, Isaiah Wilson. He's no longer in the league, and he's no longer an O-lineman, for that matter, for the Miami Dolphins, who foolishly traded for him, even albeit they swapped seventh-round picks. They traded for the guy. He is instead making music, believe it or not. And he recently dropped his EP called Layup Lines this past Sunday on April the 25th. This went live on iTunes. And Paul and I have heard this. Jacob and Reed have also heard this. Reed claims he was sick from this.
It's rough.
This does, in fact, sound like Isaiah Wilson. And it is
really
Isaiah Wilson. He
done the
goes
voice,
by G.G. Bowser.
Saying a lot.
Voice stunt.
G.G. Bowser with Layup Lines. This is the explicit EP, which you can find on iTunes. This is the single LMK featuring Tay Guapo.
Started creeping on into your music. Baby, I just wanna show you clueless. How I show you how to make a movement. Trying to give you all my heart and lose it. But I really want you to just screw it.
Chad, your thoughts?
The beat's not bad. Is this rapping or singing? I don't know exactly what's going on. Is it like a rap-sing combo?
You tell us, Chief.
It's a lot more high-pitched than I expected from Isaiah Wilson for a man of his girth. But
Very Muppet-ish.
very Muppet-ish. I could sense a little auto-tuning. My biggest question would be,
It didn't work.
If you're going to auto-tune or overproduce something, why not make yourself sound better than worse? It's
That-
almost like they
that
took
is
his voice,
better.
which was already awful, and made it worse.
That is better.
Well, how they auto-tuned it.
It's made me, for some reason, think of a clip we used to play on our old show with Susan Waldman, also a terrible voice person,
Yeah.
saying, "It's rough when he's your friend."
Yeah.
That might be the worst audio to ever be heard inside Blackbird Studio.
Oh, yeah.
First off, if
I sang
John
Blackbird
McBride
earlier.
had heard that coming out of one of the studios, John McBride, who is a businessman, might actually go in there and kick them out of his studio because he can't have that reputation of housing someone with so little talent.
Isaiah Wilson can't afford time in any of these studios.
I would hope.
any longer.
I would hope not, but who knows?
I sang Blackbird earlier during a break. It was better than that.
I would agree. Would David Reed
David
agree?
Reed, your
David
thoughts?
Reed, who hates my singing.
Paul Kuharski's version of Blackbird versus whatever that was we just heard from Isaiah Wilson.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
First of all, that's the first time I've ever heard the song Blackbird. Not familiar with that, but it's
Beatles
pretty
classic.
equal. If we could give Paul and some auto-tune, that
Take
might
these
help.
broken
But plus,
wings and
we need to
learn to
make sure
fly.
that Isaiah Wilson has been tested for sleep apnea, because sometimes it comes through in your voice that you have, like sleep apnea has an accent. And that accent is definitely, you can hear it in Isaiah.
Does it sound like
Wilson's
you?
singing. It sounds like this.
Yeah. So, the Sounds of Sleep Apnea is another great name for a band that I think played at Psychofest the year that Jacob Swanson was there.
Maybe just
also.
sleep apnea.
Just sleep
as
apnea.
a band name.
Patrick on Twitter says, getting a lot of reaction to Isaiah Wilson, the rap of Isaiah
They
Wilson.
love it.
Isaiah's rap sounds like me trying to sing at church on Sunday after I screamed all day at the Vols on Saturday, says Patrick. Travis says, it's rapping and singing combined, or as I like to call it, crapping, is what he said. It was a weird mix of like trying to carry a melody, I think, or sound good singing while also rapping.
Look, here's a problem, a broad problem with athletes and music. 98% of athletes who think that they could, Shaquille O'Neal, a much greater athlete and a much greater musician.
Yeah, he really is. It's saying a lot.
Than
Paul,
Isaiah
let me get-
Wilson.
It is better.
Just we won't play these.
Yeah, cool.
Just give me your thoughts on which one you think is the best single from the EP entitled "Layup Lines." Tears opens all tracks. All of these, by the way, have the explicit.
Is that
lyrics.
one title? Tears opens all tracks?
Tears.
Tears.
Meep Meep. No Middleman, also featuring Tay Guapo. I wonder who Tay Guapo is. Like Gigi Bowser is a player. Is Isaiah? Is Tay Guapo? Or is he just like the guy? Like,
I would think it's a woman.
is he financing this project?
Or is he like DJ
I
Khaled?
think it's
is it a woman?
I think it's a naked woman on the car.
Okay, the fourth track, Up the Sco. Not score. Up the Sco.
That's what we did last night in T-ball.
Up the Sco.
We upped the SCO.
LMK, which we heard there, which was horrendous. And Homer.
Well, I think up the SCO is
know
what
Paul
other
hates a
teams
homer.
do when Isaiah Wilson's on the field. They up the SCO. I think Meep Meep is the sound a Muppet makes, and he sounded like a Muppet. Let me talk to you about athletes and music.
Okay.
This starts, for me, in my sport attention career with Shaquille O'Neal, who was once asked, like, what would you do if you didn't play basketball? He said, I'd be a rapper. With no sense of awareness that the only reason he had any chance to be a rapper was because he was a basketball star. If Shaquille O'Neal was a regular Joe off the street, no one ever would have given him a chance to record any rap music because he had no talent as a rap musician. And that is the case with 98% of athletes. They have no musical talent. They've already been blessed with one giant talent. It's a talent that lets them be a professional athlete. What are the odds that worlds have collided and you have two spectacular talents and you're worthy of being a recording artist and a professional athlete? These two things don't happen. These are two humongous dreams. Nobody gets to live out one of these dreams. Very few people get to live out two of these dreams. Tajay Sharp once said, stay your lane. And then he went out of his lane to become a recording artist, at which he was terrible.
He was much better.
He was much better than this. Anybody's much better than this. Look, anybody's much better than this. But these guys are all delusional that they're somehow talented musicians. You're not. Play football. And if you have a little hobby at home, that's fine. But don't pretend people are going to buy it. Let me tell you about Gigi Bowser. Under 1,000 listens of all of these songs. With a reason. They suck. They suck. You also sucked at football.
We're helping to add to those listens, though, I will say.
Yeah, but it's goof. They're goof listens. You're not good enough to be a recording artist if you're a football player, a basketball player, whatever. It's a miracle that you've made it to the NBA, the NFL, college basketball, whatever. That's your miracle. Don't be greedy and think you're going to have two miracles. You're not. Am I wrong?
No, it's well said. But I will say this about Isaiah Wilson. I don't think he believes he's that good. I think he's hoping he's good. No, I think he's hoping he's good because Isaiah Wilson is
needs
lazy.
a new income stream.
And football is too hard for Isaiah Wilson, so he wants an easy route to make money. So he's hoping against hope that being the next rap star that's the lifestyle he wants to live. He thinks it's an easy paycheck, and he wants to do nothing but do whatever it was he was doing in that track and collect a check for it and go party. That's what he wants to do in life. And he feels like, well, this is the easiest route to do so because football's too hard.
All right, well, let's have a little contest here because football didn't work and it was hard. This isn't working because it's easy, even though it's easy. So what's the next easy thing he can try? Because this one isn't going to work. So
Drugs.
tweet us. What's
reality TV?
Drugs.
Is the show Intervention still on? Maybe he could be a star on that one. That's about the only show he could make right now. I mean, I'd say reality TV star would be the next.
drugs? He could have a corner.
Jake Paul? Could he go fight someone like Jake Paul?
I would love to see Jake Paul knock him out.
How amazing!
A
would
lot
that
of
fight
fat
be?
to protect him.
Love that.
Right? I mean, he's got
This
that.
dude couldn't block
baby
on an
fat.
extra point.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I filmed it.
I love that response. You don't have to tell me. I filmed it.
I mean, I rewound specifically to that extra point. and
Jacob,
gave me one.
you're the music expert in this room.
Leader
appoint
of
you
Dad's
that.
Acid,
Yes.
the famous band.
Your thoughts on the EP from Isaiah Wilson? Who you had no idea who Isaiah Wilson was before you started the show, correct?
No, I did not.
still
It's
doesn't.
absolute garbage.
Now, and you actually had a rap project at one point, correct?
Yes.
No.
What was the name of
Do
it?
we
It had a
dare
good name.
ask?
I remember it had a good
Mount
name.
Royalty.
Why the urge to go into rap? It doesn't seem to be a genre fit.
It's hooks only. It's, bangers are a real thing, and it's undeniable.
It's
Clip
the
that.
get rich quick method for Jacob. Is that the idea?
Complete cash grab.
Okay.
How did it go?
I can't say the only song that I wrote for that project on air, so it's kind of tough to market.
Right. How much cash did you grab?
Absolutely zero. Isaiah Wilson's doing substantially better than I've ever done.
It's hooks only. Oh, it's the best.
Isaiah
Coming
Wilson's
up,
doing substantially
The
better.
Tennessee Power Hour on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
Hooks only.
Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, all social media outlets at OutKick 360. Instagram, full of stories and photos, videos from behind the scenes. You can interact with us there. And on Twitter at OutKick 360, where you read tweets live during the show. You can interact with us no matter the time of day at OutKick 360. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. The Tennessee Power Hour is here. OutKick 360 is back. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us. Big thanks to David Reed, the chairman of the board, and Jacob Swanson, who always makes the show happen for us. Talking Titans draft to begin the Tennessee Power Hour, but we will get to the Tennessee Vols and the Nashville Predators, among other things. And a quick reminder that FanDuel.com/OK360 is where you can place a bet for $5 and win $100 if you bet that Trevor Lawrence is the number one overall pick. Again, $5 wins you $100. FanDuel.com/OK360. And from the number one pick to the 22nd overall pick, yesterday we had the discussion and the draft exercise of 3 drafts for the top 100 picks for the Titans and which one we felt like fit this team and brought some instant starting ability to some positions of need. I went with option A. You can go to our Twitter account at OutKick360 for all 3 options.
I went with B.
But with the one we did not like the most is the one that had the best response on social media.
Hutton and I didn't like it. Chad hated it.
Hated it. Option C, as we quickly review this is what the Titans fans and the public at OutKick 360 chose as the best option of the 3, with Rashad Bateman as the wide receiver selection at number 22, Kelvin Joseph, a talented defensive back, Rashad Weaver, who is beginning to receive more and more talk for the top 3 rounds of this draft, and Brady Christensen, an offensive tackle who Paul admitted whenever he selected this mock was just the best offensive tackle available from the group. There were not many to select from, and that's part of the issue here. It's not a deep class for what we were discussing, Paul, yesterday. If there's a run ahead of pick number 100, you guys surprised that one won out over some of the other talented groups?
A lot of the reaction I saw was B. It kind of surprised me that you guys went A, right?
I went A.
I went B first. It surprised me that so many people were going with B, even though that was the one that I like, because both you guys went with A. Yes, that surprised me, because C, to me, was far in dead last of those options. And I think for me it was mainly because I'm not a huge fan of Bateman.
And so it was option A had Kwity Paye, an edge rusher at number 22 overall, and Hunter Long was a tight end at pick 85.
Diami Brown, the wide receiver, Robert Rochelle, the cornerback. That was A. B was Barmore, Eric Stokes, the cornerback, Amari Rogers, the Clemson receiver, and Brevin Jordan, the Miami tight end.
And C won out. And we grant you permission to outvote us. C wins the latest exercise at OutKick 360. Which brings us to today's discussion on will they be there at 22? There's a lot of different mocks, and you're going to see everyone from Bateman to Elijah Moore to Kwity Paye to Zaven Collins at 22 overall, of a group that I feel like gives the Titans plenty of options to trade down in this draft. So let's run through many of the mock consensus players for pick number 22 overall, which you're about to see on your screen. And let's just run through these guys, and you tell me if you honestly think they're available at 22. Let's see how many of this group we think will be there. And that should determine some great options for trading down for this Tennessee Titans team.
Let's say I think this is more of a, let me just say, for me, more of a gut feeling thing. Like, I'm not considering, so-and-so is picking at 18 and I think they're taking, you know what I mean? I haven't looked at this list and plotted out a mock or anything.
Zaven Collins is my pick for 22. But the more and more as we near this draft, I don't think he's available at 22. I think his traits and his athleticism and the ability to play multiple positions make him extremely valuable on defense in the first round. For all the mocks that have him going at the bottom of the first, I think there will be a team that trades up to draft Zaven Collins.
I think that he's there at 22. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say because of the needs of so many of the teams in front of the Titans at 22, I think that I don't think anyone's trading up to get him. I think he's there for the Titans if they want him at 22.
Paul, break the tie.
I think he's there. I think
so
he's
we'll
available.
add him to the list.
I think just my big thing on Collins. I think too many teams. This goes against what I'm saying. Too many teams get too carried away with the versatility. You have to have a spot to start and play the guy.
I mean, some draft books have him as an inside linebacker, and then there are former coaches who will tell you this guy is perfect as an outside linebacker in a 3-4.
I think you wash him away if you say, we're going to bring this guy in and play him all over. I think you ruin him. I think you got to start him and use him somewhere.
I'm not suggesting you draft him and you play him all over. I'm suggesting that any defensive coordinator can get the most out of him because you can find a spot for him on your defense. Think about
here's what I do. I take a hole in my.
Simmons is the example.
Isaiah Simmons in Arizona.
They ruined him last year.
Is he a linebacker? Are you going to play? I don't know where you're playing him based on if you're down in distance and your sub packages. I just know he's on the field.
But he had a terrible year last year because they didn't know where they were playing.
Well, but the athleticism and the discussion that year was what position is he? And my contention with Zaven Collins is he can play several different positions out of what the coordinator wants to do.
I agree with that.
Philosophy.
But here's how I want a team to draft, particularly the Titans. They have several holes in their depth chart. I want them to see this hole and pick somebody that's going to fill that hole.
Well, this is a pass rusher for the Titans.
I hope so.
This fills the pass rush role.
I hope so. But I think there are other guys on this list who are pure pass rushers who might
and
fill
some
it
are
better.
more some are more 4-3 guys though. We're going to get to that.
Let's go back to Collins though quickly because I would say a defensive playmaker is a hole for this team.
Yes.
So that does fill a hole. It could fill two holes for you because you've got pass rusher and defensive playmaker.
Defensive playmaker isn't a depth chart spot.
Defensive tackle, Christian Barmore. Paul, is he there at 22?
I have a tough time. I'm going to say he's gone. It's a bad defensive tackle draft.
Yes.
And he's the singular guy amongst defensive tackles.
I think he's gone.
I think he's there. This is one where I'm a little. We talked about what's news and what's not. The story in The Athletic that he, I forget the way it's exactly worded, but basically that he's not very coachable. I think that's a problem because that's coming from Saban, if I had to guess, or someone at Alabama. And I don't think that Saban or a coach at Alabama saying that about a prospect with the amount of guys they put in the NFL.
We saw him start
is necessarily
6 games.
necessarily a good thing.
Here's
he started 7 games his entire
here's
career.
what trumps that. A, people think they can coach him. B and C, size and positional scarcity.
I'm going to say that he's there at 22.
Yeah.
Up next on the graph, if we can put it back up, there we go. Caleb Farley. Some consider him a top 5 to 7 overall talent, just pure talent in this draft. But the injury concerns, there's a list of them. There are plenty of injury concerns. And most recently, he had surgery on his back, microdiscectomy, to help with some pain in his back. But he's had a torn ACL in his past. He's had other prior back issues. Do the medical concerns, especially this year, force Caleb Farley down the board? And I brought him up earlier, about a month ago, discussing with you guys if this could be a Jeffrey Simmons-like player falling down the board where the value is just so great on the athleticism and the skill set that he's there for the Titans at 22.
I think he's there. As of 12:19 p.m. on Tuesday, I think he's there, and I think he's the guy. And I suspect he's ready a lot earlier than, I think he'll be ready for the season.
I think he is long gone at 22. Someone is going to love him because he may be the best corner in this draft if completely healthy. He's got every trait. I understand the injuries. I just feel like, call it a gut instinct, someone is going to be okay with the medical and draft him before the Titans could get him at 22.
I'm conflicted on him.
I'm very conflicted.
I think a team is going to fall in love with his pure athleticism. But keep in mind, he opted out last year. And
A lot of injuries.
a ton of injuries, health concerns, and he just had the back issues. For a team that is desperate for starting talent and for a team that needs to hit on the draft, is that the way you're going? You're going with the guy who
I think
has
the team
had
that
a
might fall in love
injury,
with him
lengthy injury history.
You think he's there?
I think he's there, but I wouldn't draft him. I would not draft him at 22 overall. But this is the exercise we're doing because I think we're going to end up with the majority of these players available.
I've got a lot of time to change my mind before Thursday on the pick.
We go to Azeez Ojulari, who we have not discussed much, out of Georgia, quite possibly the best pure pass rusher in this draft. But I put him on the board because of all of the offense we could see high through the top 15 picks. If the quarterbacks go where they're quote-unquote slotted right now, we know 3 of them are going top 3. But if we see a lot of movement there, if we see a lot of maneuvering for offensive tackle, or if we see Barmore or others because of the position scarcity, is Ojulari available at the edge spot?
Chadwick?
I don't want to tip our next one on the list. Well, if you're watching, you can see it. But for those listening, 3 pass rushers here. I don't think all 3 of them are there, so I've got to cut one of them and say they're not going to be there. I think it's Ojulari that's not there. I think the other 2 in Collins and the next name on the list we're going to get to will both be available at 22. But Ojulari, I believe, is the most polished, ready-made guy at pass rusher in this draft. I don't think his ceiling is as high as the 2 other guys on this list.
Okay.
But I think he's ready to start in the NFL and make an impact. So for that reason, I think Ojulari is off the board at 22. Paul?
I think he's there.
I do too. I think we could see. I think we do see Azeez Ojulari available
I
at
think
22.
he's very attractive.
If he
for
is
the
there,
Titans.
the Titans should take him.
I
at
think
22.
he's very attractive for the
I
Titans.
like him, and we have not discussed him enough because again, we go by these consensus mocks that have him going somewhere between 13 and 18. And Chicago's there, and there are some other teams that are pass rush needy, but that gets us to Jalen Phillips. If you notice, Azeez Ojulari is listed as an edge. Jalen Phillips is a defensive end. He is a 4-3 end in this draft, and because of that specialty, I think he's gone.
I think he's gone. He's got some concussion issues. He had some troubles at UCLA, but I've read a lot of stuff that makes him sound like the best pass rusher. Most accomplished pass rusher, perhaps, in this draft.
I think he's there. I think 2 of the 3 are going to be there with Collins, Phillips, and Ojulari, and I think that he's going to be there and available for the Titans at 22. I just don't think he fits. I don't think it's a pick for the Titans, but I think that he's going to hang around because of that concussion history.
Elijah Moore, wide receiver from Ole Miss. As early as Monday of this week, reports were he was the 4th wide receiver on big boards across the league. If that's the case, he's not there at 22.
I think he's there, even if he's the 4th wide receiver.
I think he's there. I think a lot of the back to the news or not news discussion we had earlier, but a lot of the mock drafts last week shifted to Elijah Moore for the Titans at 22, and a lot of those same people had him in the 2nd round before that, and then jumping all the way to 22. So he is a fast riser, as they say, getting ready for the draft. I think he's there, though, at 22.
I think he's gone. I guess that's me buying into the reports that, after the 2 Alabama wideouts and Chase, that he's the next best off the board. And if Chase is going top 6, and we're going to see Waddle in the top 10, and Devontae Smith is a top 12, top 13 player, then Elijah Moore is going to go before the Titans select at 22, if he's the 4th. A fourth. Finally, Tevin Jenkins. I'll start this one off, and I'm going to, this will lead to a different answer for a different segment we'll have this week, but Tevin Jenkins is not going to be available at 22 because I think the Indianapolis Colts will select him at 21, and he will help in pass protection for the Colts moving forward. Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State, not available at 22.
He will be available at 22, and I pray the Titans do not take him because I want them to avoid offensive tackle in the 1st round for a 2nd straight year after Isaiah Wilson, even if it's completely illogical My emotions tell me they should not make that move in back-to-back years, but I do think that he is available for the Titans at 22.
I, too, think he will be there. I think Indianapolis in front of them could go offensive line, could go pass rusher. Cosme, the USC kid, possibilities as well as Jenkins if they go offensive line. I think he'll be there. I pray he's not the choice. I know what list you're putting him on.
I'll say you guys can choose him if you'd like.
I think he'll be a unanimous choice
he
on
will
that
be.
list, and then we all go elsewhere.
You know who the Colts are going to draft? Just because I saw this guy's name in his profile and thought, this is a Colts offensive lineman, Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame.
That is a Colts name.
You mark it down right now. Liam Eichenberg is the pick at 21 for the Colts. It came to me in a dream. The first
Can we
time I
play
read
the
that
jingle?
name, I thought, I can see this guy with that horseshoe helmet on playing offensive tackle for the Indianapolis Colts.
Not a bad call.
You heard it here first. Liam Eichenberg will be a Colt.
I think if some of these defensive edge rushers, Collins, Ojulari, Phillips, are there, they would be attractive for the Colts as well. They're counting on some risers, and Justin Houston remains out there for them to potentially re-sign, but they need some help on both lines.
So
That's a good exercise.
Of
right
this
there. There's
group,
a lot of options. So what was the consensus?
The consensus was all but Barmore. We think we'll be gone. We outvoted Chad on that. Everyone else, there was at least 2 votes for each player on the board that we think they will be available at pick 22.
So
How do
say
you
that
not-
again. How many do we have there? So we have
7?
how many there? We have
8?
7 there.
I'm trying.
We have 7 who are going to be
I'm
there.
looking up at the screen far away here.
That's
7 players.
impossible. I mean, we need more gone so that we can actually make a pick.
Well, we don't have to make the pick.
I
My
know.
point is
We
the
for making
value.
our pick.
The
That's-
value for the pick.
That's a trade down scenario, right?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Because
Drop down 5 picks, get another pick.
And I do find extreme value in trying to turn four of your top 100 into 6 picks within your top 135 or 140 picks, whatever it might be, especially this year. And if you have the pod of these type players who we could all see starting for the Tennessee Titans in some manner, that's great value for the Titans this year based on their need. And we just specifically mentioned wide receiver, pass rusher, and corner, and we threw in an offensive tackle as well. But look, I would be entertaining all kinds of offers for that pick if I'm John Robinson.
And I will say, and you guys could disagree with me, and you may, well, please do if you do. I mean, you've got the edges there, right? Farley, I think we agree. The reason we're including him is because after him, I don't know, maybe Newsome we could have included here, but after them, there's some drop-off to the next tier of corners. I think Elijah Moore is a very good player, but I could see where Kadarius Toney is considered the same class of player. I could see where Rondale Moore is considered the same class of player. And that would be a team by team, how do you sort these 3 guys out who are all of similar ilk,
Yeah.
right? There are short area quickness guys who are going to be able to run after the catch, make people miss, and do some damage. The kind of guy the Titans need lining up in the slot, who could go outside also, but do some damage. Something totally different than Adam Humphries, who's going to add an explosive element to your offense. Those 3 guys, that's why, if Elijah Moore's there, are you thinking that Toney and Rondale Moore are also there?
Yes.
If I could have my choice of those 3 guys in a trade down and I have them bunched, I'd trade down if I'm looking receiver there very easily.
Without knowing the rest of the draft, we need to say that ahead of time because we're about to get Chad's reaction. If these players are available at 22, Chad, on Thursday night, and Jenkins is the pick over the talent you see on the screen, your reaction on Friday as we start the show is going to be what?
They're going to have to get a new camera in front of me because I'm going to break it live on air. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to throw it out in the street. I'm going to throw it across the street to the Funky Griddle, which is across the street from our studio here. Full toss, and that's going to be the reaction.
I'll be right with you. I mean, I would be very angry in the failure in roster construction with this team. I mean, the ripple effect, and Robinson kind of indicated, like, listen, I've answered the Isaiah Wilson question. No, you haven't. If you make this pick, John, don't expect that Thursday night that name's not coming up again and again and again and again. And I hope this guy, Tevin Jenkins, is strong-willed, because he's going to hear about Isaiah Wilson again and again and again. And it's not fair to him, but you've put him in that spot. Because if you draft back-to-back right tackles at 29 and 22, that is a major failure in roster construction. You have to, listen, you did it with Pac-Man Jones, the Titans did. Pac-Man Jones, he played all right for a while for you, but ultimately that pick busted in a similar way. The guy flamed out. He got suspended by the league, and you had to get rid of him. And you found Cortland Finnegan in the 7th round, who played damn good cornerback for you and made up for it. You have to do that with Isaiah Wilson, I think. You have to make up for him. You have to make up for him with Kendall Lamb and Ty Sambrailo for right now. Sambrailo? I still Sambrailo. You have to make up for him with that for now, and with a mid-range draft pick or an undrafted rookie or somebody off somebody else's practice squad or whatever. Or Lamb needs to be good enough. But if you make up for your failure with a first-round draft pick by saying, well, we're just going to use another first-round draft pick, to me, I mean, you're doubling up on failure.
I shockingly completely agree with Paul on this one. Totally agree. Nothing to add.
Thank you.
Coming up, the dilemma with Caleb Farley and the Preds with a big win last night and what it sets up for with the rest of the week schedule-wise and the team that they're battling in the standings, Dallas. That's all straight ahead on the Tennessee Power Hour on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. Paul, the dilemma of Caleb Farley with the injury history, and you were alluding to it about 10 minutes ago, but you feel like he'll be ready for week 1.
Well, I haven't looked into it as much as I need to, but I think the surgery that he had doesn't scream out to me, the long rehab of an ACL, a February ACL like Jeffrey Simmons had that cost him the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. The one thing is, I had some people on Twitter saying, would you rather take a guy with nagging injuries like Newsome or a guy with one injury like Farley? Farley hasn't had one injury. Farley has a torn ACL from 2017, had a couple ankle injuries in 2 seasons subsequent to that, had back spasms that led to a back surgery prior to this back surgery, and now has had this back surgery. So he's got a long injury history, this one most concerning, obviously. And then, as we've talked about, did the Titans doctors see him or not? And I think that's a big deal pertaining to the most recent back surgery. If, in fact, he was at the first weekend of April medical checks in Indianapolis. I didn't even raise that issue, but he's about a month removed from back surgery. Was he equipped to hop on a plane and go to Indianapolis for the medical checks?
And we should mention he's young. I mean, he's a 2-year player at Virginia Tech. He opted out of his junior season. He's an early entrant. He's only played 2 years at corner. And I believe the ACL goes back to high school. I
think it might have been his freshman year.
Nowadays,
early.
Nowadays, and I've got it listed here as a 2017 ACL.
That's usually pretty airtight, but a team wants to tug on that, make sure it was redone well, all of that.
Sure.
All of that stuff. But the back's the thing.
And the back, he's had back spasms, and he's had the procedure that was done in 2020. Again, like I'm specifically looking through the lens of the Titans and the athleticism, the traits, top tier talent. They don't have the luxury of the Jeffrey Simmons year right here. It's not like you're drafting him and, Jarrell Casey's here too. They don't have the luxury of last year where you're drafting Isaiah Wilson and, you have a guy who has started games for you the previous season and Dennis Kelly that's playing ahead of him in case you need some time to get him acclimated.
If he checks out, though, if he's ready.
He's got to start.
If he checks out and you were available in Indianapolis and you have everything set in stone with your medicals, and he drops to you at 22, it is extreme value because this is a guy who's not playing the slot. He's playing outside man-to-man
He's
corner.
a top flight corner.
But you think he needs to check out and be ready for training camp to pull the trigger?
Yeah,
they don't have 3 starting corners right now.
Right.
No. They think they do.
They are in dire...
Don't.
No, they don't. They cannot. They cannot believe that.
They shouldn't. Whether they do or they don't, they shouldn't.
They have to get a starting corner in this draft. They're going to be hurting, drastically hurting, if they don't.
Opening day start.
That would solve a huge need for them at 22. But again,
I would love it.
There's a huge question mark. A huge question mark, and it's a gamble. And is it a gamble you can take this year at the position?
It's a gamble that paid off with Jeffrey Simmons. They had to wait on him. You're right. They had players there where they could do it. They had players where they could do it, but it's paid off in the long run. This is it's not as much of a gamble as you were saying he's going to be ready for the start of the season by drafting.
To me, Jeffrey Simmons has not yet shown that he's the 19th pick in the draft. He's on a good course. He's on a good trajectory. But because of the big plays that he makes, people are like, ooh, Big Jeff, Big Jeff. Big Jeff needs to get his ass in the backfield once in a while on a passing play. We haven't seen enough of that. Now, I'm sure Autry's going to help and Dupree's going to help because people can't exclusively focus on Jeffrey Simmons. But second year, first round pick, I wanted to see him in the backfield more. He wasn't back there. Very good run defender. Makes some big plays, But closer sometimes to Rashaan Evans in his limitations than to Jarrell Casey, who was a do-everything defensive lineman. I'm ready for a lot more in year 3.
You're
Paul,
drafting.
if you can't see the value of Jeffrey Simmons on the field, then I just can't help you. You just don't know.
He's
football.
a good player. He's
I'm
not
kidding,
a great.
of course. This is what everyone said about Clowney with the Titans.
He's not a great player yet. He has the potential to be a great player.
He's not great yet because he hasn't been consistent enough week in, week out.
And he needs to do more in the pass rush.
And Farley's, the microdiscectomy, it's like a 2-month recovery process.
Okay.
My only question with that is, are you concerned about the injury history and this being the next thing in line and what comes with that? That's the big question mark with him. With every year you can find an injury to point to.
I'm scared of that too, but I also think, like, you're right at that spot at 22, and I'm totally with you. This is not the year you can mess with it, but it might be too good to be true at 22 if you have him 8 on your board healthy.
I think many teams may have him very high, but pass on him because of the uncertainty of, and we don't know if the Titans had their medical personnel
look at him
with him or not, or if he was just a part of the pool. We won't know that until we get the draft picks.
This might be a situation, frankly, where their problem is best solved for them by somebody taking him ahead of them.
Maybe. And again, someone may very well trade up for the athletic
or
traits of him.
just somebody in front of them might take him. Everybody needs corners, right? I mean, they're judging that against other needs, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find many teams in the 21 spots ahead of the Titans that don't need a cornerback.
Big game tonight for the Nashville Predators. They're all big at this point, but they won last night. And now as we check out the standings across the NHL, you'll notice the 2-point lead for the Predators over the Dallas Stars.
That's a big win because of Dallas's win, right?
Right. And
Dallas could have passed them.
Well, and now you have the back-to-back for the Predators, and we'll get the standings up in just a moment. You have the back-to-back for the Predators where Reed can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if they've announced who's starting in net tonight, if it's going to be UC Saros or Pekka Rinne. But typically, you have in a back-to-back David Poile and John Hines, and we saw this with Peter Laviolette. Typically, you play both. You play Pekka, UC Saros was last night, is Pekka tonight, or they stick with the hot hand with this UC Saros playing some of the best hockey we've seen in net for this team and across the league. So they have Florida tonight. Dallas has Carolina. It's a big game for Dallas as well because they're about to go to Tampa, and I believe it's 54 points for the Preds, 52 for Dallas. It may be 56-54. We'll get it up on the screen in a moment. But then after tonight, the Preds have a layoff. They have a layoff until Saturday where they have a home game against the Dallas Stars in a must-win game. It's conceivable that you end up, if the Preds drop the next two, it's conceivable where Dallas comes to Nashville with a 2-point lead over the Nashville Predators in a head-to-head matchup. Now, you can also say that it's very conceivable that Nashville holds a 2-point lead over Dallas when they come in on Saturday. It's an extremely tough schedule for Dallas due to makeup games and due to the fact that all these games for Dallas are on the road. Beyond that, though, this is the playoff race and, quite frankly, the playoffs before the playoffs even start. Nashville and Dallas head-to-head.
I think you go with Saros tonight because you have the layoff before the next game. You ride the hot hand, go back to him. They're all big now with 6 games left. Obviously, Saturday night's game at Bridgestone Arena against Dallas, huge. I think that's the route you got to go, though, because you got 2 against Columbus after that. You got 2 against Carolina. There are good teams left. They were able to beat a good team last night. That's a good sign, right? What have we been asking for? Beat someone good. Don't just beat up on Chicago.
They did.
And they beat Florida last night.
You're going to have to play Pekka against Columbus somewhere in there, right, Dave?
Well,
he's not.
The reason why
he doesn't seem very certain. You're not very certain about that?
Saros is playing out of his mind.
I know, but you got to rest him at some point, don't you?
I don't know. He's a young guy. He doesn't have a lot of mileage on him. So if he's playing this consistent, I say you ride him until he shows you that he needs a break. And especially heading into the playoffs, you're fighting. This is the playoffs right now.
Yes.
You're in the playoffs right now. It's the same situation they were in last year. He's playing well. I say ride him until he comes to you and says, I need a break, or you see that on the ice. Last night's win was huge. If they could steal another one from Florida tonight and Carolina help out the Predators, that basically sets down Saturday night as a must-win game for you to get in the playoffs. And I think that place would be rocking. The capacity has been up, so there's going to be a lot more people there on Saturday night that have been there all season. So, but I think it's Saros until he shows you differently.
And you can play him back-to-back if they so choose, because you have the layoff till Saturday after tonight.
I was looking for something about morning skate, but I suspect
I didn't see it pop up.
They didn't have them.
I didn't see it pop up. And, and typically their line of thinking would be they're going to play both goaltenders. So they may roll out Pekka tonight for the Preds, but it's a big one to watch, and it's scoreboard watching.
If they roll
as Dallas
him
takes
out
on Carolina,
and he's bad and they lose, the second guessing will be off the hook.
yeah, Saros playing great. And what's interesting too, as the playoffs begin around the corner, if the Preds can get in, Carolina is banged up, and if they were to have another injury or two, who knows what happens there. The Preds theoretically should be getting healthier. We should see Forsberg back soon, and the overall roster is healthier now than what it's been. So they can compete night in and night out, especially with what they're getting out of UC Saros. So we'll keep tabs on tonight's matchup. And again, it is a must-win status for the Preds against Dallas, which David Poyle for the last 2 years has measured his roster against Dallas's head-to-head, even going back to New Year's Day when they faced off in Texas.
The Winter Classic.
He measures the Preds against the Stars and the competitive nature of both of those franchises. I can't wait to watch that game on Saturday night.
Here's a good way to measure it. Who gets in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Head-to-head battle.
The Vols have another quarterback officially. We'll discuss that. Plus, Major League Baseball with an offensive problem. That's next on OutKick 360.
Something new from the shelf. This is an invitation to Jerry Jones's Hall of Fame party just outside Canton, Ohio. I got it because I'm on the selection committee. It was +1. But there are 3 of us. Who perturbed me last at the time? Hutton got the golden ticket. Literally golden. There's Jerry on the back in gold. They had golden wrapped hamburgers at the end of this event where we watched Justin Timberlake perform Not From Far Away. We drank with Derek Dooley, and we toasted with Amy Adams Strunk. Later on, we met Chad in Cleveland.
OutKick 360 in the Tennessee Power Hour. We're discussing all things Tennessee throughout the hour. Quick note, though, on the NFL draft. This from NFL Update, who I follow on Twitter. Is a great follow if you don't follow at NFL Update. Florida tight end Kyle Pitts just said on NFL Network that he thinks the first 4 picks will be quarterbacks.
That's interesting.
Instead of what you may think a player would say about his own draft stock. And he has said after his pro day last month that he thought the Falcons had real interest in him. And so the thought on this tweet was, not sure what's changed, because his answer today was, I think the top 4 picks will be quarterbacks.
I said this yesterday, but when that news got out that Julio Jones was on the market and they're taking calls for him, my first thought was, this is a team in win later mode, not win now mode.
Well, or
and
teams trading to 4, or they're trading out of 4.
Well, they're taking a quarterback was my first
Or they're
thought.
trading out of 4.
Yeah.
And in which case, a team would be coming up to get a quarterback and not Kyle Pitts. Or maybe Kyle Pitts. I don't know. To me, Kyle Pitts, if he gets past Atlanta, how do you pass up on him to pair with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati? Everyone's skipping ahead to Miami. But how do you not put those two together?
Yeah. I said Caleb Farley, I wasn't sure if he made the Indianapolis medical check. He did. So I don't know if the Titans had their hands on him, but NFL people did.
Chad, Joe Milton is officially official as a quarterback for the University of Tennessee. We knew before the spring game he had enrolled in courses at the University of Tennessee, but now that is official. He is on their roster.
Yeah, it was weird when he came back and told a reporter, well, I haven't decided yet between Washington State and Tennessee. Oh, by the way, Jared Garantano's first pass as a Washington State Cougar was picked off. And then doctors immediately started checking his hand. And that was making the rounds while we were at the game on Saturday, the orange and white game, and all the Tennessee reporters were saying, boy, this is surprising to see this. Very first pass was picked off in the Washington State spring game.
Is he okay?
Who knows?
Check in.
I think it was probably a mental problem that caused him to. My hand on the first.
He threw a pick, so his hand started to hurt.
I didn't see that safety looming over the top.
Unfortunately for him and Washington State, the hand's still attached to his arm, which is attached to his body, which is attached to his brain. So there's that.
So what Reed is saying is that's not the last of the picks that Washington State fans will see from Jarrett Garantano.
To tie it back into Joe Milton now joins a quarterback room that could not beat out Jarrett Garantano last year.
Yes, that's true. Well, at least one of them
Hendon wasn't there.
Well, Harrison Bailey, I guess, did too. Previous staff that apparently loved Jarrett Garantano.
Great practice guy.
Look, they're adding Joe Milton because they need a quarterback. And that's the coaches saying, we're not completely comfortable where we are at quarterback. So we're going to bring in a guy that was a top 15 player. He was a top 7 quarterback nationally and a top 50 player nationally out of high school. Big-time prospect. Did some good things at Michigan, but accuracy was an issue at Michigan. So that's something to watch with him at Tennessee. But I would have to say, guys, if I'm handicapping it now, Joe Milton's your starter. I think they're bringing him in to work out with the team this summer and be the presumed starter when they get ready for fall camp, and I think they want him to win that job.
Warmer weather will fix that accuracy, no problem. It's the Michigan cold that threw off his accuracy.
We'll see. He's from Pahokee, Florida, originally, and that's famous for chasing rabbits. You know, the football players there, they have a tradition of catching rabbits, and that's where he's from. So I would think right now, if you're going to name a FanDuel favorite for the starting quarterback at Tennessee, it's got to be Joe Milton.
Paul, what is the MLB batting average right now?
Wait till you hear
this,
Chad. We were talking about this as I was watching the Yankees come up with pitiful batting average after pitiful batting average yesterday. League-wide. You want to set it over-under for what you think batting? Oh, I texted it last night.
Yeah, I read
Major League Basketball.
Like Paul reads it. He has no idea who sends anything. He's always like, Hutton, you sent this last night. I was like, that was me.
Major League Baseball's batting average in its entirety is 232. Okay? The next lowest, this is for a full season, obviously. Next lowest was 1968, 237. You know what happened after the 1968 season? They lowered the mound. Let me read to you the lowest seasons before that. 1888. 1908.
That was a weird year, though, 1888. A lot of weird
1967, which was the year before they lowered the mound. 1884, 1885, 1909, 1972, an aberration, 1880, 1892, 1907, before we get to 2020. There is a major problem in Major League Baseball right now. Yeah, people can't hit. The pitching is really good. They've got to find solutions to this. Jeff Passan, a friend of our own show, has one very good suggestion. Fewer pitchers on a staff. You've got to leave pitchers in longer. You've got to stretch starters out longer. You can't go to the bullpen all the time because there aren't guys in the bullpen. You've got to make the staffs smaller and have pitchers stay in the game and figure things out once in a while. Face a batter a third time, a fourth time. Not be able to go to a specialist every time you're in a jam. Major League Baseball is going to continue to shrivel if people are hitting 232. I like a nice pitching matchup. I also like to see a damn guy get a damn hit.
Let me give you the problem. Major League Baseball has a long ball problem, and it's not home runs being hit. It's the fact that every time someone comes to the plate, they're trying to hit a long ball, and people have forgotten the art of hitting. Go read something by Tony Gwynn about hitting. I watched the other night the Braves Arizona Diamondbacks game, and I saw something beautiful. The Braves went to the shift. Guy for the Diamondbacks just bunted down the third baseline and walked to first base.
More of that, please.
Oh, it was beautiful to watch. An actual artistic piece of hitting to get on base and not just go up there and swing as hard as you can 3 straight times and go sit back in the dugout.
Are the analytics
I see
telling
way
them
too
to
much
do
of
this?
that.
To swing away?
Well, the analytics, when you look at run production and batting average, it's going to start to shift the other way when guys are striking
You've
out
got to hit
as
against
much
the
as they
shift
are.
like that. Listen, I went all the way back to 2020, but the batting average in 2020, and that's a shortened season, obviously, was 245. It's 232 now. That is substantial difference. Look, I don't want baseball from the 1800s. I mean, we've evolved, but apparently not.
It's weird.
It's troubling.
Bring back.
Congrats to your Yankees, by the way, losing to Hutton's Orioles last
I'm watching with my sister last night, and I can't remember who was up. She said, this guy's hitting 164.
Just rolled right past that. You noticed that?
She said, this guy's hitting 164. And Gary Sanchez was on deck. I said, wait till the next guy comes up. Actually, Gary Sanchez is all the way at 184, which I was surprised he was hitting that well. That's spectacular. Right somebody wrote a column, one of the New York columnists today wrote a column that said Gary Sanchez needs to be a part-time player, and it had just been posted, so I was only the 4th comment on it. I said, he needs to be a no-time player. He needs to be a player for another team. I am done with this guy. Deal him and get what you can for him. I mean, how long do you wait on this guy?
Coming up tomorrow, we will let you know 3 players for the 3rd round and beyond for the Tennessee Titans.
Fun exercise.
Who we want on this roster for day 2 and beyond. We'll give you those predictions and picks tomorrow.
Hutton once hit on Jonnu Smith. I hit on Laurel Murchison last year. I don't know if Chad's ever hit.
I hit on Darrington Evans last year.
I'm going to hit tomorrow.
We will.
It's happening.
Chad hits tomorrow.
Just like Liam Eichenberg is going to be a Colt, I'm going to tell you who's going to be a Titan tomorrow. Get ready.
We will get into that. We will also, during the Tennessee Hour, recap what happens with the Nashville Predators and set up a massive matchup against Dallas. All of that and more, plus the very latest NFL draft headlines and discussion right here on OutKick 360.
Stop blocking the box. Don't go into an intersection unless you know when the light changes there's room to clear it. And lock your locks. There are a lot of acid heads out there.